My name is Richard Svensson, and I'm responsible for the stop-motion sequences of the monster in It Wants Blood. I thought I'd talk a bit about how this puppet was made. It started life as a sculpture of its face in oil-based clay, the kind of clay that doesn't dry. This clay has a kind of wax-like feel, and it's possible to create tiny details by both adding bits and carving away bits. I'm using a brush dipped in Vaseline to smooth out the details. I'm creating a mold in dental plaster over the sculpture. The first layer is brushed on so I can eliminate any air pockets that might get trapped under the plaster. And you can see that I built up a clay wall around the sculpture, and that is so I can simply pour in the rest of the plaster around the clay head. This is how the finished plaster mold looks, so basically a big pink blob. The clay wall is removed, and so is the clay sculpture inside the mold. Now I'm adding a layer of tinted latex to the insides of the clean plaster mold. This liquid latex will become the skin of this creature. After a few layers, including one reinforced with cotton over the forehead, the latex has dried and I can remove it from the mold. I'm adding talcum powder first, and this is important because the latex might stick to itself if I don't do this. So what we have here is basically a latex copy of the clay sculpture. The monster has ears that look like bat wings, and this construction will become one of them. It's 4 aluminum wires held together with a wrapping of yarn, and I'm soaking the yarn in liquid latex to create a look of wrinkly skin. Here's how I create the actual bat wing look. Soft plaster is poured onto a plastic tray with a clay containment wall. The plaster is smoothed out as best as I can, and the ear armatures are then submerged halfway into the plaster. After the plaster has dried, I can draw in the outline of the ear or wing membranes. You can of course use this method to make ordinary bat-like wings too. I'm etching in some details on the wing skins, and then I add tinted latex over both the plaster and the wing armatures. The dry latex is again dusted down with talcum powder, and then the whole shebang is simply lifted out of the plaster. This monster has tusks, but I only made one in clay. This was isolated with a plaster wall, and silicone was poured around it to create a flexible mold. Quick-setting plastic was then poured into the silicone mold to produce both tusks. Screws were inserted during the casting as attachment points for joining the tusks to the monster's head. All the limbs of the monster were made from bundles of aluminum wires held together with a wrapping of yarn. I also put thin but hard metal rods over the wires where the bones in a real skeleton would be, so the wires would only bend at the desired points. There are big and small bits of the puppet's armature. This bit here will become the jaw of the snake head at the end of the monster's trunk. This little head was made the same way as the big head. I'm using liquid latex as a bonding material between latex skin and the armature wire. Here I'm using something called thermoplastic to line the inside of the head to create something like a skull. It's strips of plastic that can be heated and melted, and I'm also using this thermoplastic to attach the various bits of the armature, in this case the ears, to the inside of the head. The teeth are bits of cotton dipped in latex and shaped with my fingers. Latex is again used as a glue. More thermoplastic action here as I join together the various body parts. I'm using soft polyurethane foam from old mattresses and cushions to create the muscle padding of the monster's body. Bits of latex skin cast in special plaster skin texture molds are added over the foam padding, again using latex as a glue. The seams between the latex patches are covered up with tinted latex, and tinted latex is also used as paint to make a base color for the puppet. This creates a paint that will never crack or peel. More tinted latex in other shades are dry brushed on to create the final look. The claws and the horns on the body are made from a mix of latex and cotton. The eyes are simply painted on using acrylic colors and covered with transparent varnish. And that's how you make a blood-sucking monster from African folklore.